I've been at the church since the very, very beginning in 1938. I was in the third grade, going into the third grade when we moved to Green Hills from College Hill. I remember, well, first of all, it was kind of unique in that there was there were Catholics and Protestants in Green Hills. It didn't make any difference what denomination you were. You were just Protestant. So, so we all there were no church buildings there at that time. So we all met in the auditorium of the big white building, the Green Hills Community Building. And the way they did it, the Catholics had their service first, and they moved all their things out, and they even had kneelers and moved that out. And then the Protestants moved in with their pulpit, and the chairs were just folding chairs that they set up for church. And they even had a closet right near the auditorium across the hall, and that's where the confessional booth that the Catholics used, and that was in there, and my friends would go in there, and that fascinated me. That they got to do that.
Did you ever go in there?
No,
Never did, huh?
never went in there. Just kind of looked in there. That's all. So, but that we had Sunday school, and of course it was nice because we had classrooms. So our Sunday school was set up in all the different classrooms right near the auditorium. I don't know if that's right or not, but it seems like everyone went to church. Like my school friends, nobody went to a Catholic school, so everybody was in the same public school. So I would say, I don't really know in numbers, but all my friends were there with me, or else they were at the other service. It didn't make any difference to us because we all still played together and all that. It's just that on Sunday they got a turn and then we got a turn.
Well, we moved to Green Hills in 1941, and I joined the church in 42, which makes me, this is my 71st year as a member of the church. I was a little bit older than Jane, and I was a member of the church in Bond Hill, so we just, mom and dad and myself, not my sister, because she wasn't as old, but mom and dad and I transferred our letter in 1942, and we were there at the community building until we started the church, and the ground was deeded to us, and we had an opportunity to buy it. There's records on just exactly when we got our money from Presbytery, because we were non-denominational, although the ministers that were working our church, like Dr. Clark, and the early ministers were Presbyterian, and that's why I think we leaned towards Presbytery for the financial aid. But yeah, we were. Well, the one significant thing I remember about the Green Hills, our community church, I went into the service in 1944, and Bill Hawley gave me my Bible. Whenever somebody went into the service, you were given a Bible by the church. In fact, I could probably find that. It's here someplace, but I got a Bible in 1944 from Bill Hawley, cool. And that was in the community building. Now, sometimes Jane and I differ on how the place was set up. She thinks that the Catholics were first and we were second, but I think we alternated monthly on who went first and who went second.
I do remember that those were the most uncomfortable chairs because they were folding chairs, and if you were a little kid sitting there, I remember one of the Holscher kids, they were longtime members, he just slipped through and fell back behind him because the chairs were just not for little kids. So they always had a children's sermon, and it seemed to me there was a riser or something that we sat on, because I just remember the first minister, I think his name was Reverend Wright, and he would have it come up, and I think I mentioned to you that one sermon that I remember, or the children's lesson, was with the banana. And I always break my banana in 3 parts. I think of that because he said it represents you know, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And it does, the banana does go into 3 sections, very nice. Yeah, Anyway, he did that, and I was very impressed. Well, I was only in the 3rd grade. Well, I thought it was neat because all your school friends, you know, you don't always have that because in churches now they come from different places. But they were all your buddies from school, and so you really almost saw them 7 days, well, at least 6 days a week, your friends. We did that all the way through high school.
Wow.
All the way through high school. In fact, I remember going to the prom, which was in the same auditorium, and the next day in Sunday school. So, I mean, that was kind of different. You know, there was just a bond all the way through from 3rd grade all through high school, because everything was in that building. As you see, they had kindergarten all through 12. So, same kids there were at the church. If they weren't coming to your service, you'd pass on the way.
We were in the community building for, I remember going to the community building for at least 2 or 3 years.
Well, I graduated from high school in '48, and we were
Right.
still in the community building, and probably another year after that.
But all of us pitched in and dug in those days.
I know my dad did.
Yeah, my dad did. I did. Well,
I didn't.
no. But
Well, Rudy Koenig, he was a digger. And somewhere there was a picture where everybody's lined up with shovels.
underneath all that property was this well, and they could not find a source or could not get a way to get it straightened out. And that's why that sump pump is in there and it fires off every once in a while. There's a real problem with the property that we have because of that well. But it was given to us by the village, and we took it.
We got married in 1952, and that's all that was finished. Did it have a roof?
Yes.
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
Sure.
It was Fellowship Hall.
It was fellowship. It did have a roof on it.
That was it. There was nothing on top of that, and
Yeah, they had a roof.
that isn't where Jane wanted to be married.
Well, we went to Wyoming Presbyterian Church. I was gonna, there was, there was really nothing there except the nice big long room. But so they were very nice and said, sure, we could get married there. That's where we got married.
Just a matter of reference, Rich Moore is the man that married Jane and I. I think probably in 40 or 53, 54, we started on the upper part. The money became available, and we started in. And
When we were married, though, we worked with the youth group. Was that just the basement then? With the youth group, did we meet
Yeah, I
in
think.
Fellowship Hall? It had to be a continuing project that went, it didn't just stop for a few years. I think they kept working toward having the church.
As soon as we had the Fellowship Hall covered, and we were able to go in there at all times, then we moved out of the community building.
But I'm not sure, it seems to me we still had Sunday school classes over in the community building after that for a while. Because, you just had one big room. Yeah.
Yeah, because Sunday school was big in those days. There
And
was
got
a lot
bigger.
of participation.
It got big. Well, everybody was young in Green Hills when we moved there. Most all families were young and everybody had children. So.
The one I remember vividly was Joe and Eleanor Walters. She was such a well-read person, and Joe was a doer. And I remember them and the way that they took over and they did things got done. Alice Harine was such an influence in the Sunday school. She was just a marvelous person. Those two vividly stick out in my mind.
We had a teacher in the high school, Mr. Lindner, and you remember Mr. Lindner? Jim?
Yeah.
And was he from Australia originally? I don't know, but he was
Australia, yeah, he
a
was
very fascinating man and a wonderful teacher, and I remember him as one of our great Sunday school teachers.
We enjoyed the youth group. It was a lot of fun. In fact, it's fun to see the people in church right now who were in our youth group. Paul Odegaard was one that sticks out in my mind. He just was a leader. But Paul's mom and dad lived here, and Paul was very active.
Well, Jim had an accident when he was doing Habitat.
We used to pray before we'd go to work, and I'd always ask for prayers that no one would be hurt. Well, you got to figure out who got hurt. It wasn't a bad. There was an incident with a circular saw where I kept sawing and didn't remove my finger, and I whacked the end of my finger off.
Just a little
well,
thing.
That's a little bit. It was more blood than circumstance, but.
After that, he limited his Habitat days.
But we had a good Habitat group. There was Ron had put together. Well, he did a nice job of organizing and keeping things moving and being very gracious for the help that he received. I enjoyed working with him.
My dad sold, what would you call it, metal?
Industrial supplies.
Industrial supplies, and he furnished they got, I don't know, just tables, but they didn't have legs, or I guess they were just boards or something, and then he furnished the pipe that made the legs, and they just would screw those in, and that's for the tables in the fellowship hall at the time. So he gave them all those legs. Who knows where those legs went? I don't know. That was funny.
Well, our mom was a nurse, a graduate nurse, and she was the school nurse, and everybody knew Mrs. Steinway. They had some problems. They went with Mrs. Steinway. In fact, Mom was the first woman deacon of our church. She was very proud of that too, and she took it to heart.
Also was in charge of the nursery, and being a nurse, that place was sterile. It was so well run. She was a very organized person, wow. So I helped her in the nursery, and we had to go up there and scrub those cribs and everything, so that it was always very clean. So.
Yeah, she and Eleanor Walters were very close friends because of the nursery and nursing, and
they were both nurses.
Both graduate nurses. That's what Mom did.